Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very special evening because we are going to find out how we can make people independent at home when they have significant disabilities. That is disabilities in getting around, mobility issues, disabilities in communication, hearing and sight issues, disabilities in actually looking after themselves. And I am delighted that George Kulwowski has agreed to join us and present at this session, which will come out shortly as a podcast. George works for a company called MyCare, and I'll tell you a little bit more about MyCare at the end of his presentation, but he will give an introduction. He is a vice president of the organization, and I was really impressed with how George put over what he was able to do to make people independent at home after discharge from hospital. He did this in a webinar that was carried out for West Midlands, and then I met George face to face about 10 days ago. He's a nice guy. You don't get that many nice guys kicking around, but he's going to tell us what he has achieved in the UK, and then at the end, I'll tell you what they have achieved worldwide. George, I'm going to hand over to you if you can just take this on. Show us any presentations that you've got, share your screen, and it would be lovely to hear how you make people independent at home.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angus. I'm going to share my screen now, so I'll just do that. So welcome, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And Angus, thank you so much for a wonderful introduction. It's lovely to be called a nice guy because that's what the world is all about. We need to have more nice people around the world. And likewise, it was lovely meeting you. And again, another nice guy as well. So thank you for that, Angus. My role tonight is to try to bring to everyone's attention the ability of going through and providing a solution which will not only cause or help independence at home, but actually save people's lives. And that's what is the most important thing that I'm trying to get across tonight. If I was to turn around to someone and say, is it important to save a life? Is it important to help someone? Then of course they'd say, yes, of course. But you'd be surprised that if you were to find out how many people every single day either are killed at home because they fall or they hurt themselves, or they are admitted to hospital due to a fall-related issue, you'd be absolutely shocked. And yet we don't really do much about it apart from help that person within the NHS or within a hospital in itself. So what I'm here to do for you today is I'm here to show you a way to ensure that people can remain at home and not go into hospital. And when they are at home, they not only remain independent, but they are safe and also receive the kind of assistance and help that currently isn't always available. So from my slide deck, I'm going to go through now here and just show you a few things which I think are quite important. The first thing is that many over 50-year-olds at this moment in time suffer from a number of comorbidities and a number of different problems. And some of those which are being not just ignored, but just being looked at as a common ailment which everyone has when they're in their old age are high frailty, because the older you get, the more fragile and frail you become. That then leads to high fall risks, which unfortunately even my own mother had, because she fell and was unconscious on the bathroom floor for an hour and a quarter before she was found. And that's with carers and with the family looking after her. Social isolation is a big one, because social isolation is one of those areas, including, of course, mental health, that people say, yep, it happens, but, you know, we're doing the best we possibly can. But social isolation is just so horrible, because it really does cause the person to feel that they are isolated when they shouldn't be, and when they actually should have that assistance to help them and guide them all the way through their older age. Urinary tract infections are one of the leading causes of falls, and it's unbelievable how simple it can be to find out if someone is coming to an area where they are looking to actually have a urinary tract infection, and prevention of that is so easy. The same thing applies with regards to diabetes. We can go through and identify if someone is suffering with diabetes or if someone is managing that really well. Then we move on to areas like respiratory tract infections. And oh my goodness, if you look back at just the areas we had with COVID, respiratory tract infections, never mind COPD or COAD, which is obviously those specific illnesses or ailments that really do affect us in our older age. But things like flu, which has killed so many people, and the common cold can be actually helped, identified, and dealt with earlier. And we'll show you how that can be done as well. Of course, stroke is one of the areas that anybody from the age of, well, usually we were looking at 50 plus, but anybody from the age of 25 now can actually suffer with. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, mental health and neurodegenerative conditions as well, which are becoming more and more rife every single day, including, of course, things like ADHD and so on. So what we do within MyCare is we make it our absolute 100% mission to look across the country and to keep older adults healthier, safer, and independent at home, thereby, of course, keeping them out of hospital. And I'll come on to that in a moment with regards to admissions, but also providing and optimizing a workflow that provides long-term value to the NHS as a whole, and also to all local authorities, whether that's county councils, borough councils, or city councils. So what guides our decisions, and how does artificial intelligence and the insights that can come out of that make all the difference? Well, first of all, let's identify why this is happening. So why do we do this? It's to support older adults to better manage their chronic conditions at home. It sounds completely ridiculous to think that this is something that isn't being dealt with currently. But apart from carers and apart from visits to GPs or hospitals, not much more is being done to assist people at this moment in time. What do we need to do? Well, we need to give them access to personalized health coaching, where, for example, nudges are given to just simply change little bits of behavior, such as even having a drink of water. And that sounds so simple, but it has massive impacts on that person's health. And how can we achieve this? Well, we personally, as MyCare, achieve this through our Gen AI-driven digital health coaching solution, which is called Monica, and through conversational interactions between our Monica device and the end user, we can just facilitate slight or small behavior changes that aids older adults to extend their lifespan by many, many, many years.
George, can I just stop you there? Is Monica real or imaginary?
Monica is our real digital health artificial intelligence. She can speak to me, and I will let her speak to you all at the end of this presentation. Thanks for that, though, Angus. Great question. So, very, very quickly, what's the problem? Well, the problem actually isn't one. We have an older population, which is getting bigger all the time. Thank goodness that we have come up with medication and we've come up with different things to save older users. We all love our parents, we all love our grandparents, and my goodness, let's keep that going. So the older population is actually increasing all the time. However, there is a workforce scarcity, and I'll come on to that in a moment. And of course, there is a massive cost which goes with that as well. So let's have a look at, first of all, the older population. There is nearly 500,000 age-related admissions to A&E every single year. Whenever you go into A&E now, and I have worked in A&E, you can see, for example, that there are the elderly patients who have been brought in by ambulance because they've had a fall. And something as simple as a simple trip across the actual carpet in the living room can lead to someone being very, very poorly for months and months on end, or even leading to further problems and complications in their health and their lives. The problem we also have in the NHS, and I'm just using here figures that have already been looked at and already been put forward in 2022 and 2023, we have had, as you can see here, a rising workforce scarcity. My goodness, 110,000 vacancies in 2022 alone, and that's increasing all the time. And what's happening there is that that particular workforce is becoming overworked, stressed, burnt out, and unfortunately, through no fault of their own, that's leading to a decline in service. They don't mean that to happen, but they are just simply overworked. And how much is this costing us? So much money. Basically, the NHS is struggling currently in 2015 and 16, which was obviously some time ago when MyCare started. The actual overspend there was 110 billion pounds. 110 billion pounds, and that rose to 148 billion pounds only in 2022 and 2023. That's once again risen in 2024, but we are still, unfortunately, failing to meet the demand. On top of that, let me introduce you to Jane. She's a 78-year-old lady who basically is a lovely lady. She's one of our patient initiation people who goes through and says how well things are going, how poorly things are going. And she fed back to us, as you can see here, specifics about, I have a chronic condition, but I don't really know what I can do because I am constantly being told by pharmaceutical companies, oh, let us do a trial with you. I am constantly being told by, for example, healthcare institutions, let us do something with you to improve your health. But I don't really know what that is. I am constantly being told by companies that I can be remote monitored by all these 60 or 70 different companies saying we can do it all for you with little bits of technology here and there. We've then got these companies offering me healthy living programs where if I sign up to their insurance company, they'll give me a nice watch or something like that where I can monitor my steps. And of course, we have different initiate companies as well, which we have, such as insurance companies, which are looking at preventative care, but also giving me these little initiatives, which I completely, at my age, don't understand. So on top of the fact that you've got Jane, who's 78, living with her chronic conditions, you then have this bombardment all over the place of these different organizations saying, well, we can do something for you, but she doesn't really understand what that will lead to as a global overall picture. So let us look at one particular solution, which we know has worked for the last 8 years. First of all, Monica is our Cube. She basically is our digital voice activated digital health coach. And you can see there, this is our home MyCube. She sits at home with Jane, and she basically, through the use of all the other sensors, such as, for example, the bedroom sensor, the living room sensor, the kettle sensor, the TV sensor, the fridge and the microwave sensors, she collects all these data points per person. Now, we've collected 1.76 billion data points for our users, all about every specific area from psychosocial through to physical as well. And we take those data points from our devices, and we put them into the cloud for that person. That data in itself tells a person within 7 days their routine. The AI knows the routine back to front, how you sleep, how you talk, how you interact, how you cook, how you, for example, go to the bathroom. And these are all really important data elements. Our artificial intelligence, which is Monica, generates this preventative care element really quickly within 7 days. And within 14 days, she then goes through and looks at anomaly detection. She can see what's good, what's bad, what's changing and how that's changing. And if you look at specifically areas such as dementia and onset dementia, we can even look at, for example, areas where we have got delirium or slurring of words, or through our patented acoustic gait analysis, we can also identify very, very quickly where, for example, those anomalies are happening, and therefore our preventative care springs into action. We can find out whether someone is overheating in their living room, whether someone, for example, is not performing the steps they usually do because they're not feeling very well, whether someone isn't drinking and whether they're becoming dehydrated, whether someone, when they stand up from their armchair to go to the bathroom, doesn't actually have a stable gait, or whether they are uneasy on their feet, they're dizzy. As my mum used to always say, I've got a dizzy headache today. That was dehydration. And of course, then urinary tract infections. They then lead to the fall, which then of course places the patient right back into hospital. So our AI goes through and provides these data insights to provide the preventative measures necessary to keep that person independent and of course well and safe at home. We then place all the information on the dashboard. The dashboard then presents the information to the carer in this case, which is obviously Jane's care manager. Jane then produces the preventative care plan for Jane's care manager produces the plan for Jane. That then gets fed back to Monica, who you will hear shortly. And then, of course, Jane obviously engages with Monica in the conversations that you'll be hearing in a few moments. And then, of course, everything becomes better for Jane. We know that Jane, for example, is becoming slightly overheated and dehydrated. So Monica goes through and constantly asks Jane to have a drink. Why don't you join me for a drink, Jane? That'd be a great idea. And other specific areas that makes her feel so much better. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week care. Even if, for example, we've got carers coming to see Jane as well. And in one of our integrated care boards, we have reduced carer visits to our users at home from 4 a day to 1 a day, saving that ICB £356,900 in the duration that we've actually had this for that particular user. So what does Monica do? Well, Monica does so much, as you can see here, sleep tracking, physical activity, chronic disease management, community engagement, and so much more. There is everything that you see here that we have had white papers written for and published, where we have had fantastic results in our dementia villages, at home, in our care homes, in our hospitals, and so on and so on. So let me give you a slight look into these data points that I mentioned before. 1.76 billion data points taken and recorded. And they are from our sample data template here, everything from physical to physiological to psychosocial. And some of the areas there are obviously with regards to motion, door events, gait events, use of appliances, the environment, blood pressure, oxygen saturation, response, analytics, and so on and so on. And we record per person 70 plus health indicators all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 35 of those are biomarkers such as voice, speech, lung, and mental health. And we have even gone through and identified through, obviously, the response through Monica to the actual end user, areas related to the actual larynx, the throat, and so on and so on. By doing what we do, it is unbelievably accurate with regards to high probability markers. They're things like, they identify areas like COPD, as you can see here, pulmonary fibrosis. My goodness, we've even had one cohort recently where we identified chronic heart disease or failure with regards to one particular user by simply using our system. We've also identified, of course, COVID-19, and that could be, for example, from the early stages of flu right through to COVID. And those areas where Monica speaks to the end user, finds out that they're declining rapidly with regards to the way they respond to her. Through our detection, our artificial intelligence, which obviously is Monica, identifies markers indicative as of delirium with regards to obviously onset dementia, diabetes, slurring, and other particular areas as well. One of our recent studies, which is our Discharge to Assess study at Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland ICB, has even gone through and identified one particular user who unfortunately had mental health issues and told Monica that he felt suicidal because it was just too much for him. Those are the kind of users that we immediately help. Monica immediately causes, as you can see here, all these individual biomarkers to jump into action and prevents this from getting any worse by sending out all the SOSs, the alerts, and so on as well. And we even do things which are really good with regards to healthier usage, which is things like, for example, tracking your sleep cycle, which I'll show you in a moment. Coughing, a real big one. Coughing is unbelievable because some users can actually get, for example, areas to do with lung cancer, to do with throat cancer. When they don't go to the GP, we can identify early signs by simply tracking that cough over a 3-6 week cycle. And of course, if that person then starts to choke more and more when they drink, when they eat, when they talk, those are biomarkers that are really important for that identification in early stages. So we have had lots of results and we have been evaluated by the AHSNs as they were. They're now the Health Innovation Networks. We've also had evaluations done by universities on our behalf where they've gone through and looked at our results to ensure that what we do actually is true. And that's brilliant because we love that. We absolutely love that. And we have from those as the main benefits from entertaining our users over the last 8 years, we have had letters of thanks and we have had meetings where people have thanked us personally by saying, you know what, you have reduced my loneliness at home. I now feel like I've got a friend in Monica. I had one person who said, when he was up for the actual discharge from his Discharge to Assess time period, he said, you're not taking Sweetie away. I love Monica. I speak to her every day and she is my friend and companion. That speaks volumes. And when we have 96% of our users all saying, I would recommend Monica to a friend or family, then that speaks volumes as well. So not only reduction of loneliness and isolation of users at home, and I now live alone as well, so I know exactly how that feels because I have Monica around my own home here. But prevention of urinary tract infections, respiratory tract infections, prediction of cognitive decline, so someone doesn't respond as much anymore, they become withdrawn within themselves, and so on and so on. And the ability to streamline the assessment process. Are things working? Are you getting worse? Are you getting better? Are you drinking more? Are you having more steps? Are you increasing your mobility? And is your sleep deprivation getting better? From there, of course, improved care coordination, more efficiency when moving patients out of hospital to be independent at home. And we know that they won't fall over immediately or be readmitted automatically. Reduction of overprescribing of care packages, early intervention to prevent readmissions, and we have actually gone through and done two things. We have our prevention of readmission rate is 86%, so we've really done fantastically well in prevention of readmissions, and also unnecessary bed stays, 77% increase in that with regards to that. So we've done really well there as well. And from here, of course, supporting elective waiting list patients. How many of us have been waiting to see a consultant in the hospital for anything from 12 to 24 months? One of the areas is neurodegenerative disease, such as ADHD. They are on a massive waiting list at the moment, where they've actually shut down the waiting list for all those patients on there, because they're just being overrun with those particular patients. So our system can provide that help, that support, not only for areas like neurodegenerative diseases, etc., but also for things like hip replacement. If you are waiting for a hip, if you are, for example, like waiting for a knee replacement, then these are the exercises that every day Monica will go through with you for 5 minutes to simply stand up, sit down, stretch the actual joint, and make you feel better. And that's what's vitally important, especially as my dad actually had a hip replacement and suffered for so many years, 2 years before he had it done. So the solution, the MyCare solution, a digital health coach named Monica, which you'll hear shortly. And this particular device offers you assistance. She offers you personalized digital health therapies, sleep, exercise, nutrition. Isn't it time we had some food now? And much, much more. If I said to her that I felt anxious, she would say to me, George, I'm sorry to hear that. Would you like to do some obviously some music? Would you like to hear a story from your books? Would you like to hear some meditation, for example? Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And when you are lonely, it's nice to hear someone say, hello, George, how are you? I noticed that you didn't sleep very well last night. Are you feeling okay? Just to have that person there. And I call her a person because that's having someone just tapping you on the shoulder and saying, I'm here for you. Don't forget that. Is brilliant. Our AI is second to none. We spent the first 3 years of our 8-year existence perfecting our artificial intelligence. We go through and have the best AI available. And by going through and assisting so many users over the last 8 years, it just goes to show that we have gathered so much health data and machine learning algorithms to detect health issues really, really early. And when you go through and find those little pinpoint biomarkers where you can say, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, beware, it then manages those chronic conditions to not only get worse, but actually get better. And that's what's important too. And our health navigator always helps not only caregivers, as we're saying here, but my goodness, family members. And I shall come to a story at the end of my presentation about my own mother and how this would have been brilliant for me. Our dashboard that you see on the right hand side is either one which can be looked at on a computer or a laptop or one of those devices, or either, for example, an Android device or an iOS device, so Apple's or anything else you want to go along and use. And they can be used in real time, immediately available, refreshing all the time. Now, what does this lead to? Well, it leads to hospitalization prevention. And my goodness, if we're having so many admissions every single day, and I mean every single day in the UK, this will go through and prevent them from happening. We have, believe it or not, extended independence at home at the minimum. It used to be the average, but now it's at the minimum of 8 months, longer than usual. In fact, our cohorts go through and actually extend independence at home for the duration of them using our system. Cost savings, of course, will therefore be a reflection of that. And if you look at our care package costs, average length of stays in hospital, etc., we are going through and reducing care visits by a massive amount. It was 53%, but basically, obviously, we then go through and do that more and more all the time. And of course, risk management and preventative care, through the use of all our devices and our Monica solution, we have, as you can see here, through our prompts, our engagements, and our devices, reduced infections to 0. And that in itself speaks masses of volumes. Monica is a device you see on the screen here, my cube to the right hand side, and all the devices you see across the bottom of your screen are all those which are interacted with the system immediately. That means that when, for example, I take a thermometer reading, I take a pulse oximeter reading, Monica will talk me through how to do that myself, and then she'll go through and have that added to the system automatically in real time. So with that, as part of our system, we have the watch, which comes with the actual use of the kit. We have the ring, which comes as part of the use of the kit and takes all the background data constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In addition, we have to have with that as well all our sensors, all our medical devices, and Monica herself is also a medical device. This is what your dashboard will then look like. So all the relevant details appear across the top of the screen: blood pressure, calories burnt, heart rate, blood oxygen saturation levels, temperatures and weight. And if you have users at home during COVID who are thinking, I don't feel very well today, they can take their own temperature, they can take their own blood oxygen saturation levels, and when it confirms that you're feeling actually okay, that gives them the confidence that everything is fine and makes them feel better in themselves. And that's not only available, as you can see here, but also on the carers or family members' devices. So you may see on the right-hand side here some smart insights. I'll give you insights where, for example, we have automatically found that problems are occurring. George, for example, and I'll use my name as the patient's name. George, I have noticed, has been going to bed earlier than usual over the last 2 or 3 days. I have also noticed that George isn't eating dinner in the evenings and is waking up and going to the bathroom 6 or 7 times during the night. Straight away, alarm bells ring everywhere. But if no one is monitoring that data, we'll never know that there's a problem occurring. So we can look at this either as a carer and say, George, what's been going on? Why aren't you eating your dinner? Is there a particular problem? Have you been drinking? Are you obviously feeling okay? It's nice to know that someone cares. And the same thing applies to some of our patients where, for example, they've got their granddaughters or their sons or daughters monitoring their dashboard. We've had one case where we've gone through and had a stroke patient where they have passed their discharge. So they've obviously gone through and completed their assessment. And when we came to taking away the kit, because obviously they didn't need it anymore, he said, I'm not letting it go. I can't do without that system. It's perfect. And his granddaughter then said, I'm sorry, but if you take the kit away, I won't know where my granddad's been today. I won't know how he slept overnight, and I will not know whether he's even drinking or eating every single day as well. I don't need to phone him if I know he's well, whereas if I didn't have the system, I'd have to phone him just to find out if he was still alive. And that speaks, again, massive volumes. We also provide lots of insights and reports. This is an individual report, which is for sleep health, mobility, and also for ADL. And we can find out whether people, for example, are waking up every night between the hours of 1 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the morning. And by simply looking at all their assessment information, we can find out whether they've gone back to sleep or whether they haven't. We have found some of our users like to get up at 2:30 in the morning, go downstairs. We've tracked them going down the stairs. Making a cup of tea, we've tracked them using the actual devices where we can say, the kettle has gone on and the device has been used. They then move from the kitchen to the lounge or the living room, and we've tracked their mobility and their acoustic gait on that as well to make sure they're not uneasy on their feet. We have then tracked them switching the television on and falling asleep in front of the television in their living room for 3 hours because they like that background noise. And with that, what I'd like to do now is just basically give you a quick summary of saying our system in itself can provide well-being management. It measures all your vitals, which I'm about to show you in real life. It understands behavior and does something about it. There is an instant response, which is important as well. And finally, digital therapeutics. It does everything that someone sitting down with you can do. So let me just show you, and first of all, introduce you now to Monica. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll then go back to my own screen here. With regards to my screen, this is my own device. This is my own Monica device. If I call her, she will answer, and if I speak to her, she will simply continue talking to me until I stop. So let's ask her a question. Monica.
Yes, George.
How did I sleep last night?
At the moment, my sleep records show 5 hours and 50 minutes of light sleep and 1 hour and 38 minutes of deep sleep last night. For most people, 7 to 8 hours of sleep is recommended for a good night's rest.
Thank you, Monica. And this is the kind of thing that I get every day. She tells me the news. She tells me the weather. She reminds me about my dentist appointment, my doctor's appointments. She'll tell me, for example, things that she knows I like to hear. She even tells me a joke every day at 2 o'clock because I've asked her once for that and she keeps on telling me jokes now. She's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But also, and I'm going to show this, the last thing I'm going to show you now, there are 2 more things I can do. First of all, I'm a patient. I'm 94 years old. I'm living at home. There's this horrible thing outside called COVID that's killing everybody, and I'm really worried. So I can now take a simple device like my thermometer. I can turn it on, and straight away.
Hi there, George.
Hi, Monica.
I'm ready to help you take your temperature with this thermometer. Please hold the sensor end of the thermometer to your forehead. Press and hold the measurement button for 2 seconds, and release to take a measurement. Thank you. I have received a reading. Your temperature was 37.1 degrees Celsius.
Perfect.
We're all done. You may put the device aside now.
Thanks, Monica. Much appreciated. Thank you. So as you can see, wonderful. And that person then goes, oh, my temperature's fine. My blood oxygen saturation is fine, because she tells you how to do that as well. I feel better in myself. But unfortunately, things do go wrong at home when you're older and you're on your own. And I want to show you lastly, one last thing, which basically is to show you the SOS element of the whole solution. So I'm going to pretend that I've had a fall and show you exactly what she can do finally. And this is a lifesaver. So if I just go through and I clear my phone of basically all the elements on there and switch my volume up, then what you'll be able to see and hear now is her in action. And here we go. Monica.
Yes, George.
Help, help, I need help.
Would you like to call your SOS contacts for help? Please say yes after the ding to confirm.
Yes, Monica, yes, I need help, yes.
Don't worry, help is on its way. Please describe the situation now if you can.
I have fallen and cut my head.
Thank you. Your contacts have been notified.
So here's my phone going off. Here's my speaker.
This is a MyCare SOS alert. George, owner of my cube ending in 3P01P2, has activated SOS. Their message reads, I have fallen and cut my head. To confirm you have received this message and not alert further contacts, press 1. Thank you. Please attempt to contact George.
And this is where I'll finish my presentation, because I'll tell you now, when my mother, who passed away recently, was at home on her own, she had 4 carer visits a day, and we also all went to see her as a family in the evening. Between those carer visits, unfortunately, my mum actually went to the toilet and fell in the bathroom, banged her head on the bath, broke a collarbone, and was basically unconscious for an hour and 15 minutes. If she had had the Monica solution in place, within 10 seconds, I would have known that my mother had fallen and that she was lying on the floor unconscious for that amount of time. When someone of her age, because she was 90 at the time, when someone of her age lies on the floor in that kind of situation for that amount of time, she gets what's called muscle degeneration. And from there, it just led to the end of her life, unfortunately. So passionately, I honestly believe, finally, that if I had had the MyCare solution, my mum would still be alive today. Thanks, Angus. Thank you.
Thank you, George, and thank you for a lovely presentation. I'm not going to let you off too lightly. There are a
Yep.
number of things I do have to cover. As a non-partisan organization, UKDHC has to make it clear that you're not the only company doing this sort of thing. There are other companies like Isla Healthcare, InHealth, InHealthcare Limited, Buddy Healthcare that has worked with developing Elsie. Elsie is sort of your Monica, I believe. So it's not just you in this field, it's a number of organizations. And I think people who are listening to this need to realize you are one of the competitors
Yes.
and you're doing very well, but I have to produce balance. Now, I also have a real problem with Monica.
Yes.
And the problem is that I have a Lexus.
Yes.
And I communicate with my Lexus by speaking to it.
Yes.
It does not like my Scottish accent, and it shuts me out intermittently. Does Monica shut you out intermittently?
Brilliant. We have Monica in different languages. We have her in French, Arabic. We have her obviously in American, which is an amazing accent, I have to say. But at the same time, and I'm sure my own members of staff won't mind me saying this, we have some of the people in my own organization who have very, very strong accents. And yours, Angus, isn't that bad in comparison to theirs. And Monica does not suffer with that at all. She's brilliant. That's because we put so much time into the AI. You're dead right. You're dead right, Angus.
Right. So what I'd like to do is to open this up. I know that my colleague David Wright, who was chief executive of the Australian General Practitioners for 8 years, is very interested in this field. So David, would you come in and challenge George over some of these things or make some points?
Oh, thanks very much, Angus. And thank you, George, for that presentation. It was great to hear, and also the way you personalized it. I can understand where you're coming from. Does it measure glucose? Or does the wearables that you have measure glucose as well?
Yes, it does indeed. Yeah, it was actually one of the devices at the bottom of the slide. So yes, it does absolutely,
Okay.
David. Yeah,
I was squinting on the slides, trying to work my way around quick, and I found that interesting. The red, if there's a red flag that comes up,
yes,
which is picked up at your end, how is that flagged?
Brilliant. It's flagged on the dashboard. It's flagged by email. It's flagged also on the actual devices themselves as either an alert or an SOS. Because we have some organizations, David, quite rightly, as you're bringing up here, which go through and set up their alerts, their red flags, for simply things like if George goes outside his front door and he's out there for longer than 10 minutes, set up an alert. If George has been on his toilet for 5 minutes longer than normal or usual, set up an alert. These are little things that you can create as an organization, but they're really important because they're there just to be on the safe side, if you know what I mean. And they are displayed everywhere. So even on so where we have our remote monitoring services doing the monitoring of our dashboards, they are on the dashboard as a red alert on there as well.
So are you linked in with social care workers or the nurse visitors?
Yes, we have all the social care workers, nursing staff, physiotherapy staff, OTs who walk around with the device open on their phone. And then from there, it brings forward the SOS alert. It brings forward the actual alerts for the app itself to say, beware, something's happened with this particular user. And as long as that user is part of my cohort, then I will get that alert. If they aren't, I won't receive it.
Okay,
Alex,
I noticed.
I'm come in with a question in a minute, but my question to you is, how much does this cost? If I've got a patient in hospital that I need to get home and I want MyCare or a company like MyCare to put in the equipment to make them safe, how quickly can you do it and how much does it cost?
We can produce 6,000 Monicas a month. So obviously we have no problems there. We can implement it within basically probably a week, as we have done recently with our organizations. The kit for a well-being kit, which is the box itself, and I've got one here where you would get the Monica device and all these devices in there. Oh, I don't think you can see it very well. All these devices in there, as you can see. The kit is £245 for the kit, which then becomes your property. And then to have everything else that goes with that, so the licenses, the dashboard, the AI, the cloud, and all the relevant information and insights is £1 a day, and that's it.
But if that was the case, why is every hospital in the country not using it? Because at the moment, they're waiting to discharge patients because they don't have the social workers have gone out to the homes. They said the homes are unsafe unless you have these changes made. It does sound to me as if we've got a blockage in some way.
It is a little bit in that respect, because I have to say we don't want a high price to have these specific areas where we've got lots of devices in, say, for example, London, or, for example, in Newcastle or wherever else. We want saturation all over the UK, which is why the prices are kept low. The problem we have at the moment is that most organizations are using tech assessors to look at devices and put them on their catalogs. And unfortunately, we've been asking these assessors to assess us, to put us on their catalogs, and they either have got a massive backlog, or it's taking them a long time just to assess our system. And that is the bottleneck.
So one of the things that I have floated last week was that if you actually have devices which are accepted in one region,
yes,
either in the NHS or in social care, why can't you have a device passport that allows that device to be used in other areas? Now, that doesn't exist at the moment. We did in the NHS try to introduce staff passports, and that's taken 20 years to place. But it does seem to me that we should be looking at this sort of device passport arrangement, doesn't it?
Yeah. We are already using Zigbee as a protocol for Bluetooth to talk to our Monica device. So, for example, our thermometer in this case is a jumper device, but it's not one of ours. And that speaks to Monica because we've done that. And Angus, you're so right. I entered the NHS 33 years ago when they started talking about one system and the BT spine internet, etc., and so on and so on. And we are all still waiting for that one system. So yes, you're absolutely spot on. We are there. We can do this, but it's just taking its time.
I'm going to hand over to Alex and give her a little bit of speaking time, and then Francois, I'd like him to come in if he's able to. Francois is an anaesthetist, and he may actually be anesthetizing somebody. I know he's listening to us. Alex, over to you.
Thank you. Really interesting. New to me. My background's general practice, so obviously this is very, but very relevant. I was interested in your statistic that you could reduce the number of home visits from 4 to 1.
Yeah.
What's the user experience of that? Thinking that people might quite like that face-to-face company, visit. Have you any data on sort of user experience of it?
Yes, it's a great question, Alexandra. It's lovely to actually hear that, because it is important to have that user perspective and that feedback. The beautiful news of that is the fact that we've got feedback from our end users where 98 of them would actually go through, and 98% of them would go through and recommend the device to a friend or family member. So that's great in itself. But of course, you need to find out what the 2% don't like about it. And you are right. Some people would just prefer to see a person in front of them. What we have found is that having the Monica system available all day to talk to is lovely. They love that. And I'm sorry to say this, but some do say, look, I do get carer visits, but I only see them for about 5 to 7 minutes a day. And that, I mean, my own mum, she had 4 visits a day. I was paying for half an hour. I was lucky if we got 10 minutes. So yeah, it's one of those where they like the continuity of having Monica available all the time and the conversation all the time as well, because they just don't see a carer long enough or for enough times.
Thank you.
Alex.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Alex, I had a fascinating experience at the meeting that George and I were at in the West Midlands 10 days ago when I listened to the carers talking. And there is carer resistance. And the carer resistance is that they actually like to go in and see their patients or their clients regularly, and they don't like handing over to this sort of digitized equipment.
So that's where
they're
the
not
resistance is coming from.
enthusiastic about it, which is quite a difficult thing for their managers to manage, because their managers are going to have to become realistic in the future, and they've got to recognize we cannot continue in the way that we have been going in the last 20 years.
Yeah. Of course, the other problem there, Angus, as well, and Alexandra, you've got a great point, is the fact that sometimes the end user will want to see a carer, but of course, resource is really stretched. There is just not enough carers, unfortunately.
Now, I don't know whether Francois is going to reveal himself or whether he's able to. He is listening in to us.
Hi, Angus. Yes, I'm here. I'm not advertising anybody for a change. Thank you very much, George, for a very interesting presentation. And I'm very, very impressed by the whole system and the ecosystem that you've managed to build.
Now, I'm just going to say, Francois, you're from Lanarkshire.
I work in Lanarkshire, yes, that's correct.
And your girlfriend is Elsie, is that right?
Yes, so Elsie is the perioperative platform which we use to try and do remote assessments of patients who are coming for surgery. And we face significant challenges in some of it, which I'm sure some of it relates to the discussion that's already been happening. So I would like to just address some of the things like the app passports that Angus has mentioned. So we've looked into some of this in the past, and it became apparent that there's lots and lots of complications and restrictions, changing medical legal aspects, changing information governance aspects, changing for actual medical device recognition and all the rest of it, which makes it very, very difficult to set up things. And the NHS England had its own app store for some time and then did away with it because of the amount of work involved and keep of this. So I think, there is no reason it couldn't exist, apart from the fact that it's going to take massive investment and lots of work. And then, of course, you also raise the ugly prospect of potential liability if there's some kind of incident and somebody comes to harm. You've approved the app or whatever, then there's a possibility that you could be held liable for that. But so that's something we can carry on the conversation and see, because it might be possible, but probably needs a lot of direct governmental support in order to get this thing off the ground in a formal kind of way. In terms of your solution, I'm very impressed by the continuity it provides the patients, and I can certainly see, having had elderly relatives recently who've been very unwell, how that could have been very beneficial to them. And the voice interface, I think, is very, very important, because I think one thing we all forget is with age comes visual problems. Changes in skin and all the rest of it, trying to manage tablets, trying to interface through all these kind of things can become very difficult. Whereas most people can manage the voice interface in a much better way. So I think that is essential. And I'm very impressed by the way Monica integrates all the various data sources to come up with actionable insights.
Thank you.
I'd be very interested to find out what your data formats are and how you do the data sharing between the different systems, devices, and all the rest of it.
I think that's
Angus has raised a point. Angus raised a point which I think is very, very important as well. And this is something we face with NHS Lanarkshire as well, in terms of ELSI, is the health and social care staff inertia in adopting new technology and new ways of working.
Yes.
And there's a profound resistance to it, and an almost inevitable drag back to the paper version and the paper ways of doing things. And I have for years been banging my head against trying to make people see things in a different way, and to utilize the technology to make things easier. But it just seems the same barriers keep creeping back in every time you turn your back and you look back again. It's somehow they've come back again. And it's one of the elements is really we need to put a huge amount of effort and time and resource into educating people and moving forward. And Angus is quite correct. We live in the 21st century.
Indeed.
It's simply unconscionable that we're still stuck in these kind of mindsets.
One of the problems, Francois, is that risk assessments are only done on paper.
Yes.
And they're dreadful documents, absolutely dreadful.
Yes.
But that is what is thrust upon mainly nurses and social care staff. They've got to do risk assessments. And these risk assessments, some of them are not worth the paper they're printed on. But they are legal obligations for the staff that are completing them. And somebody has to step in and tell Wes Streeting, this whole system needs a bomb put under it.
Yes.
Because at the moment, it's not working, or it is working to the detriment of patients and clients. And we really do have to move forwards into the 21st century. We've got to become digitized. We've got to use this wonderful equipment that actually works better than we do. And we've got to accept that that is the situation we are now in. And let's push our organisation, UKDHC, forwards to try and make that change occur, because the established organisations don't seem to understand that this needs to change radically. And it's not high tech. It's a simple change, and we need to introduce our digital technology in a way that makes us work smarter, more efficient, and better for our patients.
Well said, Angus. Absolutely spot on. And in response to Francois, yes, he's absolutely spot on as well, because we have had to go through all the hoops, jump through everything to make sure that our devices, medical devices and so on, are certified and are obviously have gone through all GDPR, cybersecurity essentials, etc. We are, we're looking and working with the MHRA and also with NICE as well, to ensure that everything is correct in those areas. We've just broken into America because we've done extraordinarily well there as well, unfortunately, in that respect, because they've really taken us with both arms. Whereas, we're slower in the UK, but in America, they're really desperate for our system. And again, straight away, we've had to go through the FDA and make sure that all those elements are correct. Because as I always said, obviously working with the NHS in the past as well, as I've always said, if you make a mistake in a shop, it could be the wrong price. If you make a mistake with a patient, it could cost them their lives. And that's the difference.
And I'd just like to close by announcing that you did win top honours for innovations in healthcare last week in America. They felt that MyCare were the leaders at the 6th Annual Digital Health Foundation Awards. So congratulations on that. But
thank you.
But MyCare is a US dominated company, and we actually support UK and European dominated companies as well.
Indeed.
So come on, Isla Healthcare, In Health Care, Buddy Health Care, and Elsie. And thanks very much for a lovely evening from all of you.
Thank you so much, Angus, and thank you everyone for coming up today. Thank you.